Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Astrology Now with astrologer Babula Clement and myself, Cheryl Gottschall. It's a pleasure to be back again with you and with you too, Babula.
Thank you, Cheryl. You too.
And we've got an interesting collection, I guess, of planets in this full moon time. And I was just saying to you before in our little pre-chat, I was about the full moon in Aries, coming up maybe with this war and peace thing. But before that, maybe you'd like to lay the ground there for the recent equinox which occurred.
Yeah, good. That's a good idea because that's always a significant point in the year. Every year, as we reach these quarter points in the year of the equinoxes and the solstices. So it was on the 23rd, a little bit late. Well, it's not that it's late, it's on perfect time, but these equinox solstices can occur any time in the month from 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd. This one was on the 23rd, when the sun leaves Virgo and moved into 0 degrees and 0 minutes of Libra. And that's the actual moment of the exact so I'm saying it now too, of the exact equinox.
We'll get it right yet, folks.
Yes, when day and night are equal and everything is in perfect balance, and it's so perfect, of course, that it's at 0 degrees of Libra, the sign of balance. And when there's that opportunity, even for a moment, of perfect equilibrium and harmony and balance between all the polarities of light and dark, night and day, masculine, feminine energy, and so on. And I find that those equinox points to every year, the spring and autumn equinoxes, are really, like, I often feel on the day of that, and I did this time too, I just feel very quiet. Like I just felt very quiet and very still and didn't have a lot of energy to do very much. And so just was enjoying that quiet energy on that day,
Did you get any sort of insights or messages or downloads at that time? Because metaphysically speaking, it's a time when the veils between the realms are a bit thinner than usual.
Yes, that's a really good point. I actually did. Mine was around it came up very clearly around how I often live in a way that's not in balance in myself. And I thought I just felt really tired, very slow, not very driven or motivated. And I'm usually someone who, does a lot in a day. I kind of get on with things, and I just really saw very clearly, no, this is really good for me to just be really quiet and do very little. And so it was really showing me something very clearly it felt really important to me. It felt really important to me to give that to myself and to practice that a lot more in my life, to just sometimes just stop and be really still and quiet and just literally take a break from it all.
Well, at that time, I'm sorry, I'm going to say, but at that time I was, I felt a bit the same way because I was running an equinox sound bath for people. And it was I just noticed a difference in the way people responded. They seemed really calm and serene after it. I've done sound baths before, but this was a bit different. There was a real sense of serenity in people that I was picking up after the sound bath.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's the Libra invitation, isn't it? Yeah. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. So of course that means then that the sun is now in the sign of Libra, and for the next 4 weeks moving through the sign of Libra. So all our Libran friends and people we know will be all having their birthdays over this period. And it is the time of year that offers us the energy and the opportunity to look at these core themes of Libra, which are all about balance and harmony. And the opposite, what's not in balance and what is not in harmony in our lives, in our relationship, in our day, and so on. We really get to address that, I think, very significantly. So it is a time when relationships really are highlighted. They come to the fore. Our relationship with ourselves, with life, with our environment, with each other, key relationships, yeah.
And I think it can be to do with former partners as well.
Yes.
And those relationships can also be to do with enemies and rivals or opponents too, can't they?
They absolutely can. They absolutely can. Yeah, that's very, very true. It's Aries, because we'll be talking a lot about Aries and Libra today. Aries is very much about me, myself, and I, and my will, and what I do, and how I do my thing in an independent, autonomous way. Yay, Aries. Libra is the opposite polarity to that, and it's all about you and me.
Yes, yeah. And it's willing to compromise and negotiate, isn't it?
Yes, and our relationship dynamic. And so, in my experience around these Libra times, when there's planets moving through Libra, there can be a lot of ruffling and disturbance going on in relationship dynamics because we're focusing our attention there, and things just come up and things happen. And, certain relationships that might have been trundling along okay, something might happen or be said, or something might be coming up in someone around, I'm not sure this is okay for me anymore. Or, we need to talk, that wonderful thing that comes up in relationships. We need to talk.
But, Libra doesn't like that ruffled feathers and all that. It wants something to be calm and smooth. It wants the waters to quell,
That's right. And to be harmonious.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as I always say with all signs and planets, if we look at what are the problematic or difficult shadowy areas of Libra, it can be a tendency to do anything to keep the peace. I'll do anything, turn myself inside out, bend over backwards, do anything to please you, negate all my own needs and identity just to keep the peace. Yep. So that's something that will, could arise for people as well, especially given all the energies going on in Aries at the same time.
Yes, yeah. And I think that I'm just thinking about my grandmother who was a Libran, and she had all the beautiful gardens and lovely home inside. It was a bit of a show home. So she had this great sense of balance, an intuitive sense of balance about what looks good, what feels right. But then you've got this Aries full moon that comes along and tramples on your garden and, it's all over your prize roses or your prize gazanias or whatever you've got there,
That's right.
That's a real good analogy, I think. It just boom, boom, boom.
That's right. I had that experience once of someone was in the garden doing some clearing and hacked savagely this glorious climbing rose and hacked it to pieces, and I was absolutely mortified. So that's a great example, with a sharp blade.
Yes.
Chop this thing of beauty down. It did recover, and I must admit it did actually then come on really well after that. We know roses need a good
hack
pruning, but yeah, it was pretty savage, and I was a bit devastated at the time. So yeah, that's an interesting way to look at that, isn't it? Like that Aries energy just comes charging in, and Libra's feeling the disturbance of, the disturbance of the peace.
Yeah. And yet at the same time, Libra has that tempering effect, doesn't it, of that Aries brutish warlike energy. It's got the battle gear on, it's ready to go to war, and Libra comes in and says, now let's sit down at the table and let's discuss this quietly.
That's right. That's right. And bring out the best china and make a beautiful cup of tea, and everything will be very elegant. And because Libra's all about negotiation, isn't it? It's, the conversation to negotiate, to discuss, to consider all points of view, both sides of the argument. You think of debate organizations where people learn to actually debate either side of an argument. It's a great skill.
Yes. Yeah.
Instead of just charging straight in, battle ready. So it's a fascinating polarity, this one. And so it'll be highlighted very much on the 29th of September, when the moon will actually move into Aries that morning, and that evening it will be the full moon of the full moon at 6 degrees of Aries, opposite the sun at 6 degrees of Libra. So we'll be exactly in that polarity of Libra, ruled by Venus, the goddess of love and all things beautiful, which is why Librans, like your grandmother, just have a natural capacity to create beauty. And Aries, the energy that's all about go, 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 and just keep going, and quickly and fast, it's ruled by Mars.
Yes.
And this is a very interesting time over these couple of weeks and around this full moon, because while the sun and the moon, both at 6 degrees, don't have any really major aspects going on to them, the South Node is in Libra, which it is all the rest of this year and into next year, and it's conjunct Mars, the ruler of Aries. So Mars, the Aries planet, is in Libra, the Venus sign, on the South Node. And so the warrior energy of Mars is in the sign of negotiation, discussion, desirous of a win-win outcome, to maintain, peaceful relationships, and so on and so on. And then opposite that, on the North Node, we have Eris, Eris, and Chiron in Aries. So we've got the full moon, Chiron, Eris, and the North Node all in Aries, and Mars, the Aries planet, in Libra on the South Node, with the sun in Libra through this full moon period. So that's a lot. So this theme of those two signs is very prominent. And it's what you said when we started, you mentioned that phrase, war and peace. It's like that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. One thing I was going to point out too, though, was that, any full moon actually, it reflects its light off rivers and oceans and lakes and all that sort of thing. So it's a good reminder to pause for some inner reflection too, I think, particularly with this full moon in Aries, if we can, and bless you, lovely Aries people, but if you can, just pause rather than responding, or not responding, but reacting. Just hold back a little, take a breath, basically. Take a breath and count to 10. I think that's where that whole idea came from, don't you think?
Absolutely, because Aries nature doesn't have very good impulse control, we could put it that way. It's immediate, it's right now, and there's very little thinking things through to think about how this might impact other people that they're in relationship with, for example.
I was going to say the same thing. There's no regard for the fallout,
right,
of what they say or how they behave. Yeah, no regard for that whatsoever. It's just a boom, out,
done, move,
done.
Yeah, it's an immediate response to the moment, and to just got to do. I mean, I just watched my young grandson, who has Aries rising and Mars on his sun in a fire sign, and that's one of the key things I observe. This poor, well, can call it poor impulse control, but that's probably not fair to say that, because he's just being himself. Everything's now. Absolutely. And he'll do something, and afterwards you go, why did you do that? I don't know. In the moment, you just had to do it.
Yeah.
Like lock the shed door, because he loves gadgets and gizmos, and then lose the key. Because in the moment,
Mm.
all he knew was, I want to lock this door. I love things like this, right? So
Yes,
that's the
yes.
moment. So yeah, we can keep sort of seesawing backwards and forwards between how these signs relate and interact with each other. So like some people who perhaps may need more of the Aries energy, they may be overly focused on pleasing everybody all the time and being nice all the time and only wanting everything to be calm and peaceful. And sometimes a bit of fire is needed. Well, there's going to be some fire energy up over this full moon as I said, on the evening. It's exact at 7:57 p.m. Eastern Australian time. So go outside that night and she'll just be fully lit. I mean, already I was out last night and you can see it's already growing and light.
The other thing I was going to say to that, you're just talking about that Aries Libra balance. Two is that, Libra can be a bit of a fence sitter. So that Aries energy can come and go, okay, come on, make up your mind.
That's right.
That sort of give you that boost up the backside to get on with it.
That's right.
Make up your mind about this, make a decision. I know Librans can be terrible at trying to make a decision.
Oh yeah, it reminds me of that title of a book that an Australian author wrote years ago. It was called The Tyranny of Choice, and I often think of that with Libra. You'll see that in a young Libran child. Oh, don't make me choose. I remember a woman said to me years ago, she had a Libran child, and she said she learnt very quickly never to ask that child if they wanted a strawberry ice cream or a chocolate ice cream. Just buy them an ice cream and give it to them, and they'll be happy.
Yes.
Ask them to choose. They'll be there for so long trying to figure it out.
I used to live next to a neighbor who had two little kids at the time that my daughter was young. And I think she was a Libra, and she came home. And one day she said to me, oh my God, Cheryl, I just went to the supermarket. All I want to do is get a little tin of spaghetti for the kids. And there's spaghetti oops, there's spaghetti animals, there's spaghetti alphabet, there's spaghetti with cheese, there's spaghetti with something else. And then she rattled off about another 5 things. She said, I just want a tin of spaghetti. Don't make me choose,
That's right.
But, if that Aries energy just come along, go, that's it, bye,
gone. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Exactly. Very, very, exactly.
Amazing.
Yeah. So at this time, these couple of days of the Aries full moon, so it's Friday evening, but that whole weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the moon will be full going through the sign of Aries. So that fiery energy is going to be up. So we might be feeling more impatient, impulsive, a bit aggravated. Like it literally can play out as some people like starting an argument in a relationship.
Yeah.
And I used to be married to an Aries. And I've watched Aries, wonderful human, I have to say that, and we're still friends and all's good. But I have watched Aries because it's very familiar to me and my family and so on. Unknowing to them, unconsciously just provoke to begin an argument or a fight or a conflict or some kind of a battle because it needs that to be engaged and feel alive. So we might find ourselves in various kinds of conflicts. And if you've got young children around, children just respond to these energies just immediately. There's no censoring. So you might have, children yelling and screaming and fighting and arguing because that's, on full display. They're just so kind of innocent in a way with these energies as they move. So just to be aware of that, folks, there could be a bit of conflict around. And of course, in the public arena, absolutely, certain conflicts might be really coming to a head. On the one hand, through the Libra period now, there's opportunity for negotiation and a bit of peacemaking and harmony. But this Aries full moon could really be a trigger.
Yes, there's a lot of division in society at the moment here in Australia with certain issues, and
certainly is.
Which there's where was I going with that? Oh yes, somewhere. Something that you said. We'll just forget that bit. It'll come back to me.
Yeah.
I think it was about. I don't know what it was. It's about the me and the us.
Yes.
I'm right, you're wrong, or the opposite is we want to all be together in harmony and peace about an issue,
That's right. Or even agree to disagree, but
Yes.
agree to disagree instead
Yeah.
of, being at loggerheads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes. And of course, Libra is also a sign that's very associated with the law and all issues around legality and justice and fairness and what is right.
Yes.
Like, again, I come back, I keep mentioning young children just because when you observe them, they are just living these energies in the most natural, unfiltered way. So a Libran child will be very aware of when mum cuts up the cake, that every piece is equal and everyone gets an equal piece. Whereas Aries is just charged in and just grab the biggest piece immediately and they're off out the door.
That's absolutely right.
Right. So these are all just metaphors of how these energies can display.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting, with Mars in Libra now, on that south node, I think we will see in personal life and also in the world stage, certain people will be endeavoring and attempting to bring people to the negotiating table. I think there are definitely efforts in that direction. I'm not sure how successful that will be, but I think that's Mars and Libra will endeavor to do that.
Yeah, I think endeavor is the word, but you've also got Eris in Aries too, remember?
We do.
So so there's that sort of energy to take into consideration, although I don't think it's conjunct with any of those that you mentioned.
Well, what it is, and I'll point to it here. This here is the symbol for Eris. And this here is the north node of the moon.
Yeah.
Right. And then over here, you've got the south node and Mars. So there's this very strong theme here. And so Eris and the north node are both currently exactly at 24 degrees and 53 minutes of Aries. And they've been together now for a good month or so and over the next month or two. But at the moment, they're very, very close. And so let's talk about Eris for a little bit. I haven't for a while. So
I'm digging around in the asteroids and getting to know them a bit more, and I've become very interested in them, and because there's so many. And I think bringing asteroids into the astrology is the way of astrology in the future.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's how I feel anyway. Astrology is great, but I think the asteroids are that they're the icing on the cake. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Yeah. And Eris isn't technically an asteroid. She's one of these outer bodies out in the Kuiper belt. It's a different area to where all the asteroids are, but I know what you mean.
Yes, yeah.
There are these outer bodies which began to be discovered and named around 2005. And Eris is a really interesting one. And interestingly enough, her original name, when she was discovered by the astronomer who spotted her, she was given an initial temporary name of Xena.
Yes, I remember that.
I wish she was still called Xena because I just went, wow, at the time. Because, many of us remember watching that series on TV. It was great. Yeah. It was, oh boy, that was so popular.
Yeah.
Particularly amongst women. She was Xena, warrior princess. And she was always ready for battle, but she was fighting the good fight on behalf of those who had been wronged or mistreated or not given their justice, So she fought for that with her sword, and she was a full-on warrior. So this body, Eris, was originally called Xena. And then she became officially titled Eris, Eris. And in the Greek mythology, so I'll just sort of tell the story briefly. Eris was a goddess in the Greek pantheon who, she didn't make people feel very comfortable. And there was a wedding on Mount Olympus, and all the beautiful high society people were there. And all the gods and goddesses and the heroes and the specially selected mortals and so on. It was one of those big events. They didn't.
I can actually interject. It was the wedding of Peleus and Thetis.
Excellent. Thank you. I couldn't remember their names. Good. Perfect. And but they didn't invite Eris because she was a troublemaker. So the general view of her was, oh, she's going to stir trouble. She causes trouble. She's an agitator. Let's not invite her. Let's just have a beautiful wedding without her. But she wasn't invited. Well, in Eris's world, like, that is not okay. Eris is the daughter of Zeus and the sister of Mars, Aries, right? So she is of warrior energy. And so she's not having a bar of this. So what does she do? She gate crashes. She just turns up anyway. So she arrives and everyone sees her and they're mortified that she's dared to turn up. But she walks in and she holds out in her hand a golden apple. And she says, this apple is for the goddess who is deemed to be the most beautiful, the fairest of them all. There's various fairy stories about the fairest of them all, and apples and so on. And so all the three main goddesses present, Pallas Athena, Aphrodite, and who was the other one? Juno, I think. They all, preen and, want themselves to be chosen as the most beautiful of all the goddesses. So Zeus selects young Paris, who is a hero, to judge who is the most beautiful of the goddesses. The poor fellow, he has to make this call. So the three goddesses promise Paris different things, such as worldly power, success in battle, great wealth. And he goes, whoa, that's amazing. And then Aphrodite, Venus Aphrodite, she offers him the hand of the most beautiful woman in the world in marriage. And of course, Aphrodite is incredibly beautiful, and Paris he's a young man, he's caught up in this idea. So he chooses her. And that choice, choosing Aphrodite, who should never have offered him the hand of Helen of Troy, because Helen of Troy was married to the king of Troy.
That's right. Yep.
She was already married. So this is very naughty of her, right? She wants that golden apple. She wants that title. And that decision sets in motion a series of events that causes the Trojan War and the sacking of Troy.
Yep, that's right. And I think actually Paris ended up getting decapitated, didn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and he abducted Helen and so on. So that first act was rejecting this, what Eris represents. It's a rejection of that energy that's not always comfortable, it's not always easy in us, that might be seen as really difficult and troublesome. I can't remember the details, but I know there's a story about the 13th fairy too. There's various stories in the world of fairy tales where if something is rejected, it can cause a lot of problems.
Yes, I think I vaguely remember something like
that. It's like rejecting the shadow.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to ask you, in that story, was Eris already like that, or did she become like that because she was rejected? So that was her negative attitude was actually born out of the pain that she felt from being left out.
I think that has a lot to do with it, that feeling of rejection. But she was, from birth, she was born of Zeus and is the sister of Mars. And her titles were, she's the god of chaos.
Yeah.
The goddess of chaos, the goddess of disruption and conflict and so on. But what she's doing, what her behavior did, it revealed and exposed something of the unconscious of, all the different people who played a role that led to the sacking of Troy and the abduction of Helen, and this war would never have happened if she'd been invited in the first place.
Exactly.
Right?
It's like being in high school and not being invited to being in the cool kids club, you know?
Absolutely. It's exactly that. So there's a sense of the rejection, being an outsider, and Eris is demanding that everything and everyone be included. You know, and so otherwise, yes, she does cause chaos and disruption and discord. She's the goddess of discord. That's the word I was looking for. Discord and chaos. That's, if you read anything about her, that's how you'll see her.
So she's but it's Aries at the moment.
Yes. Well, she was actually in Aries all of last century. Very long orbit. It's over 500 years. So she spends a long time in every sign. She's been in Aries all of the last century. And what did we see in the last century? 2 massive wars, and just war after war after war after war after war. Yeah. Most of which were probably quite unnecessary, but, you know, they're caused by certain people and circumstances and so on. So I think Eris has a lot to do with us becoming more conscious about disowned parts of ourselves that can result in all kinds of really difficult situations and chaos and, you know, violence and war and arguments and so on and so on. So she's a powerful energy, and she is now conjunct the North Node at 24 degrees of Aries, both of which, of course, continue to be in the square aspect to Pluto. She's been traveling in this square aspect to Pluto since 2020. So, you know, that's one of the astrological indicators of, you know, contributing to everything we've been going through since then.
Now, can we just throw in there something about Chiron, because Chiron's in Aries as well, and he was abandoned by his parents too, because him being born as half man, half horse, he was rejected because they went, oh yeah, do we give birth to that? You know, that sort of thing. But he overcame that by that sense of he processed his wounds of abandonment and transformed that experience and his feelings around that experience into wisdom and healing, even though he was, you know, he was the wounded healer. But, you know, he started off like that as well, feeling rejected and abandoned, but he overcame that instead.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good point. I can see that connection with Eris. He was, rejected by his mother because she thought she'd given birth to a freak, you know, when he was born. So there's something about, you know, Chiron to me is very much about, you know, this idea of holistic healing and things like soul retrieval and reclaiming parts of ourselves that have been lost or disowned, cut off, disconnected, bringing everything back into wholeness, because the word healing is very connected to the word holing and holy, you know, healing, holy, holistic. It's all about embracing it all, you know. And and in Aries we're looking at issues around battle and fight and conflict, aren't we?
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're going through here in Australia at the moment, but other countries are going through it too with their various issues as well. And there's this, you know, we can see in Australia, because of the issue around the, I'm going to say it, the Voice to Parliament referendum, there's this feeling that we want people to come together, but the opposite is happening. There's this huge divide happening. So I can see all of these things playing out. You've got Aries, you've got Chiron abandoned, you've got Eris, who was rejected, right? And these are issues that are coming up through this particular Voice to Parliament issue about people being cut off, and Eris is also, I think her energy was also about, well, why were they invited to the wedding and I wasn't? That sort of thing. So there's this issue going on around, well, why is that happening to that group, that demographic of people, and not this demographic of people? Like, there's this whole, and then you've got this in the middle of all this Libra balance. Like, hello.
Exactly. And people taking very strong positions on either side and not actually coming together and say, well, I'm trying to understand why you see this so differently to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
we
on both
humans,
sides.
yeah, absolutely. We humans seem to find that very difficult. And let's face it, the whole truth about the situation isn't fully available in the public arena. So, a lot of opinions and points of view aren't fully informed.
Yes, or transparent.
All the information.
Yeah.
That's right. So this is a very strong time. And on those couple of days of the Aries full moon, all of these issues are going to be very to the fore and very heightened, because full moons always heighten everything. Everything just comes up in full, looks like a fully lit.
Yes.
People's emotions are high. And in Aries, the emotions will be fiery and impulsive and angry and hot.
Yeah. Well, Mars rules Aries, and Mars ignites.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like lighting a match, or setting a match to a bonfire or a bomb, or it's like setting things alight.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it is really strong, and we hope that the Libra energy is enough of a balance and a harmonizing influence to bring us all into some kind of a reasonable sort of equilibrium, which is what Libra's all about.
Yeah. Could I just say one more thing about that collection of what's going on in Aries at the moment? Because I was reading about the North Node, which is not part of the Greek mythology, but apparently it holds a significant role in the Indian mythology. And just like Eris, the North Node, apparently known as Rahu, and I'm quoting somebody else here, didn't get invited to the party when the god and goddesses gathered to drink the nectar of immortality. So he disguised himself, showed up uninvited, and stole the nectar. And he eventually was recognized, and he was decapitated too. But because he had already drunk that nectar, he became immortal. So it's like, here's another story about that.
Yes, exactly. And those energies where we experience any sense of rejection and being excluded, they're difficult, they're painful, they're things that we often don't want to touch, or we'd rather avoid, which is why the North Node usually has this energy around it of, it feels a bit uncomfortable. We're much more comfortable in the South Node energy, of the past. It's familiar, it's known, it's a natural, automatic place of comfort and familiarity. But the North Node is always life sort of calling us to, go there. This is where the real gold is. And so Chiron, Eris, you're absolutely right. That's a great observation. Chiron, Eris, and the North Node all together in Aries, maybe for many, for all of us in different ways, to come to terms with the fact of war and conflict and aggression in ourselves, in this world. There are many who say the world is currently in a war. Yeah. And things aren't all roses and peace and harmony and sweetness and light.
Yes. And these issues, I think these social issues, get our ire up.
That's right.
Right. It's sort of just below the surface, and it's sort of ready to, do the wrong thing and bang.
That's right. So there's a lot in here. And remember that moon at 6 degrees of Aries over the following 2 days, as it continues to move through Aries, because the moon is only in a sign for 2.5 days, is going to pass across Chiron, Eris, and the North Node. That will be on the Sunday. So the full moon at 6 is on the Friday evening. on the Sunday, that moon, still very full, is going to cross through those planets, later in Aries. So now it doesn't mean that it's all going to be, aggression and anger.
No.
I'm not, but it's a lot of energy. And if in many ways, Aries isn't only about aggression and fight. Aries is also about having the courage to do something new, to initiate something, to birth something new, to be bold and daring enough to say, you know what, I'm going to do it. Instead of getting stuck in the Libran South Node energy of, oh, will I, won't I, should I, what do you think I should do? Do you think it's a good idea? Where this Aries energy calls for, go for it.
Yes, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that Libran South Node could say, well, this is how it's happened before. So and project it into the future, whereas that Aries goes, that was then, this is now.
That's right. I have to do this thing.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So I just wanted to say that it's not all about aggression. Aries is that fire energy of birthing the new, of being bold and courageous, Yeah. And for some people that might be, with Mars in Libra on the South Node, opposite all of this Aries energy, that might be being brave enough to speak up in a relationship. Perhaps there's been an issue going on for ages that you just haven't felt confident, brave enough to address yet. And you just go, I have to speak about this, or I have to do something about this. And it will initiate some kind of new dynamic and process. Yep.
Yeah. I think people might get the impression, well, if not now, then when?
That's right. That's right. So that's all a lot.
That's a lot.
A lot going on.
But very interesting.
Yeah, very. Now, and then a few days later on October the 3rd, something that's of interest to me, the Black Moon Lilith, who's been in Leo since I think it was the 3rd of January, right back in the beginning of the year, has been in Leo. She is in a sign for 9 months. And she is, of course, very connected to the feminine and to the disempowered yet extremely powerful feminine. And she's going to move into Virgo on the 3rd of October and be in Virgo till I think it's around the end of June or July 2024, for 9 months in Virgo. So I always, a simple way to look at the Black Moon Lilith in the signs and so on is, so what has been disempowered here? What has been like not allowed or rejected or vilified or demonized and made someone feel afraid of expressing? In Leo, it's afraid of being seen as who you really are, in your true authentic power and self. Virgo, I find, I've known many women with this, it's a real deep spiritual connection to the divine feminine as Gaia, earth, nature, healing plants, all things natural, and also literally to the Divine Mother.
Yes, yeah.
We were speaking a lot about Virgo the last couple of times. So now the Black Moon Lilith is going to move into Virgo. And I've seen many women that I've known with this often have a very strong innate sense of connection to the natural world and really value it and treasure and feel acutely the pain of the destruction and, people who cause harm to animals and nature and trees and plants. It's inconceivable to them. It's a sacred thing.
Yeah. So
right?
So that Black Moon Lilith, which is the part of us, the part of the feminine energy that has been pushed aside, not being able to express itself, it's now going to move into Virgo with the sacred feminine, where it can find wholeness. Is that
yes, and healing, because this is also about health and healing and medicine and so on.
Yeah.
So, you know, the patriarchal world that we've been living in, you know, for so long, has been, you know, working very hard to actually sever our relationship to what is natural in so many ways. And when we start to reconnect and reclaim the truth of the real Leo energy, Black Moon Lilith energy, we actually become more powerful and will stand up in the face of that so-called authority and just say, no, I'm not doing that. That's not okay. I won't have it. Because Lilith is ultimately extremely powerful. And remember in the story, you know, particularly in the Hebrew, early Hebrew version of it, she rejects Adam's insistence that she take the lesser role of wife.
Yes.
And not be equal to him. And she just absolutely refuses.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, in the face of God and God's angels, she just says, no, I'm not doing that. That's not okay.
Yeah.
So that'll be an interesting one, you know?
Yeah, I'm just thinking she probably had played a role in the women's movement.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'll see very often women who in all the recent decades have been very prominent, you know, leaders in that movement in various ways will invariably have really strong Black Moon Lilith placements in their chart.
Yeah.
You know, they've stood up on behalf of the feminine. Some of the earliest suffragettes, the same.
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's you know, it's I think issues around health and, you know, the medical system and so on are going to come to the fore, and the attempts to shut down the natural healing modalities and so on will be really forefront. Things to do with nature and the natural environment and so on are all going to be coming through, and there'll be many people who are going to stand up very strongly as strong voices to, you know, protect and defend that.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, yeah. And for some, it will show up as a deep connection to the divine feminine in some way. Yeah. I mean, in the Christian story, she's very well represented by two figures. One is Mary Magdalene, who was, you know, rejected by the church until we began to realize that she was something else altogether. And also the Black Madonnas. You know, these. I have one behind me. She is there, Black Madonna of Rocamadour. And she is a Madonna with child, but she's always black, and she exists in quite a lot of churches and crypts and cathedrals and so on in Europe.
Yeah.
So they are often very connected to, in my experience, of the Black Moon Lilith in Virgo. And for some, this might be a time when they find that they feel an urge to call on her, perhaps in some way, or strengthen a relationship or connection with her.
Interesting. I'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah. So that will be an interesting one to follow. And, you know, for anyone who has planets or angles in Virgo in their chart, you know, you can sort of track to see when she comes to that point, what are you experiencing? What's going on? Yeah. Okay, October the 5th, Mercury leaves Virgo, where he's happily been, you know, busily, well, he's been there for ages now because he did the whole retrograde story in Virgo.
Yeah.
And will leave the sign of Virgo and go into Libra. So Mercury's going to be in the same sign as the sun. On the 9th, Venus will also move into, and wait a minute, what have I got that there for? She's going to move into Virgo. I wrote Libra. That's not correct. It's Virgo. Because she, of course, has been in Leo for ages, for months, about 7 months, which is a long time. And because of the retrograde story she did and the Venus star point and so on, So she's going to finally, on the 9th of October, leave Leo and go into Virgo. So that's interesting to me, because we have the Black Moon Lilith, feminine, and Venus moving into Virgo, which is a very feminine sign, by the way.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Has a strong connection to the moon too.
Yeah.
And on the same date, there'll be a Venus Black Moon Lilith conjunction at 0 degrees of Virgo. Which just happens to be exactly on my south node. So I'll be marking that. Well, it's already marked in my diary. So, you know, I'll just be really curious to sort of observe and notice what I'm experiencing and seeing with that. Now, then on the 11th, oh, go on, you want to say something?
No. I'm just going, because I write it all down in my diary too and go, what happened? What was that? Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We call it, that's living astrology.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, it's the lived experience of it.
Yeah.
Then on the 11th, the day after, Pluto, who's been retrograde for about 5.5 months, will come to a standstill. We call it stationary, and begin to turn direct. So all around that week, around that week, Pluto, Lord of the underworld, he of atomic power and regeneration and death and rebirth, is at its station at 27 degrees, almost 28 degrees of Capricorn, and will slowly in the following days and weeks begin to slowly inch his way forward. And, you know, over time we'll pick up a bit of momentum, so that in January, I think it's in late November. Is that correct?
Moves into Aquarius.
Something like that. He will finally get the hell out of Capricorn, leave Capricorn and go into,
Yes.
That's not correct. He will leave Capricorn and go into Aquarius.
Not forever.
Finally.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen till the end of 2024.
Yeah.
I was getting a bit overexcited.
I know.
I jumped the gun.
I'm really curious to see what happens and what changes, what shift we'll feel, and what changes we'll see. Yeah.
2024, there'll be a stronger impact of Pluto in Aquarius, because he's going to be in Aquarius for about 9 months of next year. He's only got a couple of months to remain, where he'll just slip back into Capricorn to the very last degree for a couple of months, and then finally be done with it by the end of next year.
I'm just hoping he tells AI to get out of Dodge,
Yes.
With technological surveillance. And mind you, Saturn, classic ruler of, in there, is restrictive. So I don't know what's going to happen there.
I think the main issue around that, of course, is who's managing the AI.
Yeah.
Who's got control of it, I think, is the really big issue. So it's not looking great at the moment.
No.
So let me see. And then we did say October was going to be a strong month.
Yes.
A lot happening, because then on the 12th, the day after Pluto is stationary and slowly begins to turn direct, Mars, who has a strong relationship with Pluto because they're both rulers of Scorpio, moves into Scorpio. I know. So that's a doozy. Mars will then be in Scorpio for 6 weeks. And that's a lead up to eclipse season, which then leads us into, later in October, the Mercury and the Sun will also move into Scorpio, and Mars will be there as well. So we're coming into a very strong time.
Yes.
A potent time. And
that's a good word for Scorpio, potent.
It's very potent. It's intense, it's potent, it's powerful. It can be life-changing. I mean, these you know, the nodes squaring Pluto, the nodes in Eris squaring Pluto that we're currently in is also a time of real crossroads and challenges and difficult choices. You know, just everywhere I see it, people are having to make often difficult choices, you know, like, well, do I go this way or do I go that way, around many different aspects of their life, you know, relationships, money, work, health.
Yeah.
And when we go into these Scorpio energies and the eclipses, I'll just briefly mention them. October the 15th, the new moon solar eclipse at 21 degrees of Libra. 2 weeks later, on October the 29th, the lunar eclipse at 5 degrees Taurus and Scorpio. Yeah, they are times when we, you know, have to face often, you know, quite difficult things, deep things, things that are operating and moving in the unconscious, you know, behind the scenes, below the surface. It's very valuable and very fruitful ultimately, but it can get pretty intense.
Can you sort of explain to me and people watching how the equinox that we've just gone through has set up or is like a precursor to these two eclipses? Is there a connection there? What is it?
Well, I think there isn't, in a way, because the solstice, you know, marked the moment of sun at 0 degrees of Libra, and the first eclipse. So sorry, the equinox.
We're doing it again.
Isn't that strange? Isn't that strange? The equinox, equal day and night, 0 degrees of Libra. The first eclipse in the second half of the year, because eclipses happen every 6 months, is in the sign of Libra.
Yeah.
You know, it's in Libra, and which is ruled by Venus. And then the lunar eclipse 2 months later at the end of October is in Taurus, which is also ruled by Venus.
Interesting.
Yeah. So Venus is definitely a theme. And that points us to, you know, heart energy. You know, are we, as much as possible, coming from the heart and, you know, endeavoring to keep our hearts open? It's not always easy. And to be making choices that are from the heart and heartfelt. Yeah.
Yes, that's interesting, because that's the new moon solar eclipse is the day after the referendum.
Right.
So that'll be very interesting to observe that issue, how it plays out, and then how that new moon solar eclipse affects the result.
Indeed. Very interesting, isn't it? Yes. And, you know, as I said, Libra is about justice and law.
Yeah.
And when we speak law, you know, white man's law, Aboriginal law, justice, truth. Yeah.
So you've just hit on something that I've been pondering on. I haven't actually looked up the planetary movements, but what's happening with Jupiter there? Because it seems to be out of the scene at the moment, because that's the truth seeker and the truth teller, isn't it?
Right. Jupiter is in Taurus. Right. All this year. He's currently retrograding at 14 degrees. So he's right smack in the middle of Taurus in a retrograde phase. And out of all the outer planets that are all still currently retrograde, by the way, he only turned retrograde recently, so he'll be the last one next year to turn direct.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's not specifically particularly active at the moment.
No.
But next year, and I forget exactly when it is it April? For some reason, April popped into my mind. There will be a conjunction of Jupiter, big energy, with Uranus, big energy, in Taurus.
Okay, so as you're saying that, I'm getting the idea, because Taurus is about the earth, the land, the resources. It's about money too.
Money.
With Jupiter bringing its truth telling to those issues, particularly around at the moment what we're going through with land, you know, land grabbing, mining rights, all these sorts of things.
That's right.
And then next year when Uranus turns up, boom, out of the blue, first of all, transparency, right? And then next, like, oh, we didn't expect to know about that, or
That's
where
right.
did that information, or not information, but wow, that's like like awakening to some new knowledge.
That's right.
To some
That's
new
right.
truth. Yeah.
And things can happen suddenly and take us by surprise. And yeah, you know, we often heard say after a Uranus transit, well, who knew that was going to happen?
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and with
Never said it
Jupiter,
coming.
which is such a big energy, these two planets,
Mm.
when they're together, because I see people who were born on these kinds of conjunctions, who were born when Jupiter was conjunct Uranus, there's such an energy of consciousness and knowledge and ideas and thinking outside of the box and seeing things in a different way to, you know, many of the people around you and so on. It really switched on. It's a big, high energy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
To do with, you know, higher mind and knowledge and so on. So yeah, watch this space.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm excited about it now. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, because, you know, so they're both retrograde currently. Jupiter's at 14 and Uranus is at 22. So they're, you know, they're still kind of there. They're still in a wide conjunction of 8 degrees.
Yes.
But yes, as they both start to turn direct, they'll really start to be coming together next year. So it's going to be one of the significant stories of 2024 is the conjunction of those two.
It's like rubbing two sticks together.
Yeah.
And boom.
Yeah. And what will be revealed and what will have changed in the Taurian economic, financial structures and systems of this world and in our values and our relationship to the earth and so on. I'm going for the revelations.
Now, just on that point, and oh gosh, we are going over time, but just on that point, because you're having a workshop in December, which is going to talk about the astrology of next year. Do you want to just quickly talk about that?
Yes, I can't remember the date offhand. I think it's late November. Is it the last weekend in November, maybe, I think. And I do these every year. I do a whole day workshop here. I'll also do an online Zoom one. Yeah, where I go through all the main planetary movements and themes and issues coming up in 2024.
Oh, we'll have that date for you next time.
Yes, thank you. And I haven't even put it up on my website yet. I must do that.
I know.
Thank you for the prompt.
I'm booked in.
Great. Yes, you are definitely booked in.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of that's a lot to sort of synthesize actually with what's going on with this this next lunar cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
And I always encourage people to, you know, when you know a planet's changing sign, pay attention, notice what you might be experiencing. You know, there can be a shift both in what you're experiencing on the inside and what you're observing around you. You know, when a planet changes sign, there is absolutely a change of energy.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I was just thinking too, for those people, and I'm just having a look, if you know who don't know their astrology, there are some websites that you can go to where you can actually put in your birth details and with your date, time, location, and time of birth, and you can bring up your astrology chart for free online. And so if you've got a developing interest in that, just search free astrology chart.
Exactly.
One I was just looking at was astro.com is one of them.
That's a great site.
Yeah. And there is another one where you can actually look up your asteroids in your chart too, but just put in free what did I put in? Free astrology. I can't think what I put in there.
Asteroids or something.
Yeah, free asteroid chart. Or
I
free
think that was Astrodensed. Was that right?
well, that's actually astro.com.
That's astro.com.
Yes, I think they've got it on there as well. So
yeah,
I'd have a look at that if you want to have a look and see.
Because astro.com is a great resource. It's massive and
yes.
good quality stuff. And there's another great website that I often like to direct people to is called cafeastrology.com.
Yes. Yeah,
that's excellent. A lot of good information.
Yeah, so you can get that information about yourself on those websites for free.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Babula. Thank you so much for all that information.
Pleasure as always.
Oh, it's so amazing. And for people watching and or listening, if you enjoyed this episode, please like it, leave your comments, and if you want to hear more, click the subscribe button. Remember to tap the bell to get notification of the next episode being published. And wow, I look forward to seeing you again soon. And to everyone out there, stay safe, enjoy life, be happy, and stay free.
Yes.
Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.